Africans together. We unite. At a moment such as this one, when globally politics are dividing, we can stand up and put up a flag and say, when we are united, we can bring change that ultimately means our cities are governed for the better and for the future of our people. Ke a leboga Nkosi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maimane. I now call on the leader of Good and also the leader of Unite for Change, Minister Patricia de Lille.
Thank you for my new name. Good morning, South Africans. Goeiemiddag. Am I still growing? Thank you. Good morning, South Africans. Goeiemiddag, Dumelang, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for affording us this opportunity to engage with you. I also want to greet my fellow leaders here. And I would like to speak about governance and service delivery, because they are interdependent and they also give government legitimacy. As I had the honor of serving as a mayor, as an MEC, and our minister, I bring that experience that the challenges are different for all three spheres of government. But of the three, local government is arguably the most important to get right, because that is where government interact the closest with the people. We know that South Africa's towns and cities are grappling with pressures and opportunities of a rapid urbanization. We know already 67% of the people in South Africa live in cities. We also know that by 2050, more than 80% of people will live in cities. Because cities and towns are regarded increasingly as opportunities. People go there for opportunities. And therefore, we must prepare so that we make sure that we prepare the cities for this growth that has already taken place. Because cities and towns are the drivers of change in any country. Those of us who are coming together as Unite for Change, we understand that local governments must act with urgency and must be
it should belong to South Africans. Now is not the time to massage and fuel egos. South Africa and its people need the best and most capable to make laws and policy decisions that irrevocably affect their lives. We are in this mess because the exact opposite is common, where people of questionable character, history, and capability have the reins of power and destroy institutions and people's lives. That is what we are learning at the Madlanga Commission, and that is what we learned at the Zondo Commission. This is the silent killer of our dreams, the wrong people in powerful positions. Similarly, if you are watching this and in your mind you believe there is a special breed of people called professional politicians who are going to save your life and your future, then you are thinking about this in the wrong way. You need to change your mindset and bank on yourself to play an active role and to lead. The mantra, as Moses said earlier, is that politics is too important to just leave to politicians. The second is that it is time for a new and younger generation of leaders. You cannot modernize with old people, with respect. Old ideas and the inflexibility that comes with wanting to do the same things that have been tried and failed on numerous occasions before. You can use their experience to not repeat old mistakes, but modernization needs new perspectives and new energy. So if you are a young person, you have an education that your family and your parents have fought hard for you to get, but are watching your future being destroyed by corrupt, arrogant, and incapable politicians, then it is time for you to step up and step forward. They will not hand over power voluntarily. You will have to rise and take power by all democratic means necessary. Third, let us advance social democratic ideas, where a modern, capable state at local and national government is a catalyst and enabler of equitable development. But this also means we stand and insist on certain values that must bind us together. These are freedom, justice, equality, and solidarity. It is these values upon which we must build a society that is fair, that does not deny or minimize the continuing effects of our colonial and apartheid pasts. These are the values that must drive our political and governance work, advancing justice, equality, and freedom by unifying South Africans under the banner of universal solidarity and non-racialism. Fourth, the days of thousands of workers going into factories in the morning are becoming a thing of the past. We must change our thinking about the economy we must build. This means anchoring education for all, technology-driven infrastructure development, leveraging resources such as our enormous and diverse tourism assets, the creative, care and climate economies, and the economies of ideas and knowledge. This is not to say mining, manufacturing, financial services, and other similar legacy industries are less important. They remain important, but we cannot build backwards into a past that will never come back, but a future we can all actively participate in together with the rest of the world. Getting the basics right matters. Rebuilding critical public institutions that have been destroyed and continue to be destroyed matters. Maintaining roads, traffic management, water and electrical systems matters to economic development and building public confidence in democracy. Having councillors, MPLs and MPs who know how to build and run a modern economy matters. So this takes me back to my initial call to action. Our fundamental failure is that we do not currently have enough capability in our politics. It sits outside. Today is an opportunity to start changing that, and ordinary South Africans should be front and center of our efforts. I also want to say today is the beginning of the journey, not the end. It's the beginning of the journey, not the end. It's important that as we proceed from here on, we are as inclusive as possible. We continue to consult and have discussions with other political parties, with other organizations, with people in our own structures, so that we can have an outcome that truly works, that we can all be proud of. I also want to say, as I close, that I'd like us to remember in our thoughts and prayers the South Africans who have gone missing in the flotilla to Gaza. These include Nkosi Zwelivelile Mandela, Zuki Swawana, Reyes Mula, Zahira Suma, Fatima Hendricks, and Kerry Shalva. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that the values that we spoke about must apply to people whose rights are being abused in South Africa, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in South Sudan, in Asia, in the United States, which is becoming a fascist state right now, in Gaza, and everywhere where we see injustice. Earlier we said it is false to say that we have to choose between values and competence. It's a false choice. It is possible for the two to live alongside each other. We must reject that proposition, that we must compromise with racism so that we can get competent people in government. As if the two are different sides of the same. They're not. They don't exist together at all. And we must be prepared to have the difficult conversations we refuse to have, that South Africa remains cruel to women. That South Africa's men hunt, beat up, and kill South African women for sport. So it's important that we learn to walk and chew gum at the same time. It is false to say that we have to make a choice between these things. They have to go together. And finally, I want to say to all of us, to my fellow leaders, that we must see each other's roles as that of catalysts. South African politics has been centered for too long around the personalities of its leaders. All of us must be prepared to yield to a new generation of leaders. This invitation requires a genuine commitment to do that, beginning with ourselves. Otherwise, we will fail that commitment. And all of us must be prepared to serve where we are best suited. So we must not make the same conflation of contribution and position. The two are not the same. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Z. South Africa, these are your leaders. But as it has been stated, South Africa, you are the leaders that we want. It's not up to the 6 women and men seated here. It's up to you at home. If you're unhappy with the way your councillor operates, raise your hand. If you're unhappy with the state of your roads, raise your hand. If you believe that South Africa can be better, raise your hands and stand with Unite for Change. And we are Unite, not UFC. Unite for Change or Unite, not UFC. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to open the floor to members of the Fourth Estate, the media. For your questions, you know how things operate. Just state your name, the media house that you represent, and shoot your question. There are colleagues who have microphones, Lerato and Danny. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, Karin, Danny.
Hi, do we need to stand up? Or
No,
can I just sit down?
be comfortable.
Thank you. Karin Duplessis from the Africa Report. I have a few questions, but I'll try and start with the most important ones. I just want to know the implication of this coalition for 2029. I mean, yeah, the parties are all in different arrangements in the government of national unity. Is this are you going to run as a party in 2029, or is 2026 going to be your test year? Also have a question. You were talking. Everybody of the speakers were talking about youth and how important youth leadership is and youth representation, but none of those at the table there is a born free. And I think about half of our electorate, half of the voting age people now are born frees. How do you explain that? Do you have any idea what your support would be in a place like Johannesburg, for example, which is where I suspect you might want to get most of your votes from? And my last question is, how important a role did funding play in this decision? Did any of your funders sort of say that it's easier to fund a campaign if you're united? Thank you.
Kamukhel. Are you ill? Kamukhel.
elections. And also, last, you have had too many parties promising a lot of things, service delivery and all that. How are you as leaders, or maybe as this party, going to give deference to the citizens?
Heidi.
It's Heidi Jocks from ENCA. So two of my questions have been asked is around the funding and whether or not that had a role to play in the decision to merge. And then also around, are you going to have an elective conference? Like, how is that going to work in terms of who will be the leader of this party? That will obviously only be in, 2029, I suppose. And then just the last question, did you consult your support base? Like, did all three of you consult your support base to figure out whether or not the people that voted for you in your individual entities actually support this merger? Because obviously they need to be in support because they will have to eventually vote for you if they are in agreement. Did you consult at all? Did you go on the ground and ask whether they agree to this? Thank you.
We will close the first round there. You want to go first? All right.
Do I need to come there?
You can.
It'll probably be better. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you very much for some of those questions. I think it's important to. I think before we get ahead of ourselves and have a discussion about 2029, we focus on 2026. It's a local government. It's a local government election. Part of what drove this conversation was, I want to use a practical example. I live in Dobsonville. Well, I vote in Dobsonville, Ward 48. It is effectively, if you put all the parties in Ward 48, and let's assume 5 parties contest the election, and each of the entities that are here get, for ease of numbers, 10 votes each, and another party comes in and gets 12, that party wins the ward, whereas the 3 parties together could have won the ward. Local government gives you the prospect of being able to put something on the ballot that works. And therefore, I think the questions about whether or not it's important that we work together collectively at local government, attract the best people, and the national leadership structure, composite of other parties that will come on board, will then guide the candidate selection process so as to achieve the view that says, for all of us as South Africans, how do we lead this entity that operates at local government? This seizes the idea, I remain leader of Bosa, and Songezo remains leader of Rise, and Patricia remains leader of Good, as she will be a minister in that sense, and Patricia, etc., etc. The parties remain. And I think that's a very important thing to distinguish so that we understand that we're working towards local government elections and where that goes. I think it's inconclusive to say that the entire leadership is all here. These are the founding. If you build it, they will come. And I want to invite young people. I agree with you. I think the question was put forward here. Young people must come on board. They must lead. We've got many. They must come in. We'll set up a structure that invites people to be able to do so. And I think we've wanted to, I always say when to somebody asks the question, did you explain it to your structures? I say to them, you know, as difficult as it is, I support Kaizer Chiefs, others support Pirates, others support Sundowns. But all Chiefs, Pirates players and Sundowns players go play for Bafana Bafana for a particular tournament. That tournament is local government elections. I want us to, I think your questions really I believe in justice. I believe ultimately that we need to see a ceasefire in the Middle East. I think where there are terrorists, we need to condemn terror. I think we cannot deny the fact that hostages must be returned. And I think there's a global effort to achieve peace in that space. That's what we've stood for as Bosa. And as leader of Bosa, I've stood by that principle and will continue to do so. And I think even in the midst of the difficulty of all the situation, I still maintain that a two-state solution is possible in the long run. So I think I really want us to foreground and say, in the interest of justice, it must be, as we've spoken about, something that we are committed to everywhere in the world, whether that be in the DRC, whether it be in any other part of the world. Let us stand for justice. Let us make sure citizens have their rights respected. And let's uphold the rule of law. So I think that's been my position. It's been consistent, and I've stuck to it. I think those were the questions that were directed more specifically to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly young people must lead. It's your time to lead. But to become a leader, you mustn't get appointed. You must work, and you must work damn hard. The leaders in front are bringing the experience to work together with young people. But young people must come forward and work hard. Nothing is going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You have to work yourself up. And so I agree, young leaders must take over. On whether we have consulted, the Good Party held our elective conference in November of 2023. And that time already, on the agenda of the national conference, the highest decision-making structure of Good, the discussion started to start engaging with like-minded parties that shares our values, our principles. And the Good Elective Conference amended the Constitution of Good to allow the leaders to continue to engage. So that is part of the mandate that we have received from the Good Conference in 2023. Even this morning, at 8 o'clock, we consulted with all of our 50 councillors across the country. We've consulted with our national leadership, because in this journey, it's very important that you must take your membership, your supporters together with it. On the issue of who is the leader of the party, we have agreed that we're going to have a council of leaders, so that that doesn't become an issue who must lead. But I think we further agreed that to have an elective conference towards the end of 2027 or 2028. Then the other one around Palestine, yes, we support the two-state solution. We must bring peace in that part of the world. We condemn the genocide that's taking place. But we are also saying that the hostages must be released so that you bring lasting peace. We pray for the safety of all of the activists across the world that sailed with food and medicine to go and help the people in Gaza, that they will return safely to all their respective countries. But the world cannot sit back anymore and watch women and children being killed on a daily basis. I think from South Africa's experience, we have learned through our own experience that negotiations and peace talks is better than violence and war. So the journey starts today to unite, to bring more young people on board so that they can lead us going into the future. But for me is that young people, you are not only the future, you are also the present. And we invite all the young people to come and unite with us to build unity for change in our country. I thank you.
You want some support in Joburg and you were funding and elective conference.
Okay. I see he's not putting the platform on for me. I feel targeted. So I just want to maybe deal substantively with the question of leadership. When I said here, this is the beginning of the process, I was serious. We are talking to other political parties. That cannot be settled by the three of us here. That's important. The second thing is that if we are serious about coming together with other organizations which may be active at local level, etc., we have to respect them and not settle those matters between the three of us. There has to be a constitution. There has to be a way in which internal structures are constituted in line with that constitution and so on. We cannot put the cart before the horse. And I also want to once again talk about the obsession in South Africa with the cult of personality of leaders. Because at the end of the day, this is what, in the end, has undermined political alternatives in the past. So none of us should be anxious to answer that and that question only before you've placed any proposition on the table, before you've done further consultations. Our respective organizations continue to exist with governance structures. The consultations with those structures must continue about each and every step that we take going forward. Each and every one. Including questions of when and how you build democratic structures with elective conferences. Patricia spoke about the fact that young leaders cannot be appointed. They have to be elected. So again, you cannot front-run the question. The question is, what processes are going to be in place in order to get there? Taking account of the length of time it takes to build structures. In the case of organizations, how do we work together in Johannesburg, where Good and Bosa, Good and Rise have got a presence, for instance? How do we get to candidates? What kind of structures do we have, etc., etc.? The last thing I want to address is that it is not possible for any political party that has been elected either to a council, to parliament, or to the legislature to dissolve before that mandate has expired. The law does not allow it. I will continue to